Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Keelloo Talk. This is episode 13, and today I'm going to be, reiterating over another subject that I've talked about twice: anime. Wow, believe it or not. Anyway, I'm going to be talking about 3 anime that I've watched recently that I haven't talked about in the past. So, hopefully, this is at least somewhat interesting. And I apologize if it's not, but anyway, let's get into it. So the first one I want to talk about is Seizukai Yaka Indemo. This is a very interesting one for me because I've been watching quite a few slice of life, school, rom-com shit in the past few weeks. That's just been what's on my mind. But this one kind of stood out to me because of its just weird ass humor. I mean, sure, harem, excuse me, and all this rom-com stuff usually has a very formulaic approach to what their humor is, and it's kind of hard to differentiate one from the other. But this one kind of stood out to me, which is why I continued watching it. It's in some aspects it's very formulaic. It's like you have this guy who comes in, he's the only guy, so you can kind of expect what's going to happen. So yeah, he's forced to join the student council because of this girl who thinks his outfit is not proper enough. Which is a weird enough concept at most, but that's kind of how it starts. So he goes into this student council room with the rest of the cast, the president, the secretary, the treasurer, blah, blah, blah. So you get Shino, Arya, and Suzu. And okay, here's where I'm going to kind of go into what makes this show a little bit more distinct than others. I'm not saying it's entirely distinct, but there are some factors about it that really, really stood out to me. Okay, this Shino is the student council president, and she's very prim, proper. She wants to enforce all the rules and keep things very civil. Kind of given of a student council president. Great, that's fantastic. But the catch is, she's a fucking pervert. Like that, and that's the catch of the show. Like these two, and I'm saying these two as in Shino and Arya, are just they're fucking perverts, and that's what the show's humor revolves around. Is not like physical humor. It's like sexual verbal humor. Like they're like part of you thinks that like what the hell? Like was I like this when I was 16, 17 years old? I mean, you probably were, but I think this is a very grand exaggeration of that stereotype, and it's really fucking funny at times. I say at times because a lot of the jokes are hit or miss. Sometimes they feel quite forced, but other times the timing is just, perfection. They mention a lot of obscure shit, very obscene crap, but it's like at times, if this is kind of your sense of humor, you recognize that, oh shit, like, I can't believe they just said that in this context. And other times you think, why did they bother to include that? And that's kind of the main humor of the show. It's just these two fucking dumbasses. And you have Suzu and Suda over here. Suda's the main character. He's the guy who always calls them out of their bullshit, and Suzu's just kind of there as well. Looking at them like they're just fucking idiots. And, these two are kind of idiots socially. It's and on top of that, Arya is this rich bitch. Her family owns all these huge kind of conglomerates and companies, businesses, whatever. And she has this maid named Dejima. And Dejima's Arya's probably rubbed off on her. She's their maid. And oh god. It's like Arya's I can't explain it. You have to watch the show to understand, but she rubs off on Dejima. So in turn we have not only this presumably 17-year-old girl affect this early to mid 20-year-old woman who's their maid of a very rich family doing the exact same shit that Arya does. And it's like, are you 10? I really do enjoy this anime. I think I don't know if I would say clever, but interesting departure from other slice of life rom-com school anime. I mean, the characters all have very distinct personalities. I think they all are very well developed characters. Even the side characters are well, like Katomi and Mitsuba. But yeah, I really had a lot of fun watching this one. I wouldn't put it up there super high in like the rom-com school thing, but it's rated pretty high, and I don't really understand why it's so high. I mean, you can't always take these ratings for granted, but yeah, it was kind of weird to me how high these were rated. But they are fun. So if you want something fun, I advise going to check it out. Excuse me for 1 second, or a few seconds. Okay, the next one that I really want to talk about is Happy Sugar Life. Now, this is one that is pretty recent. Seito Kai, it's fairly dated. I think it's almost a decade old, I believe, I want to say, but whatever. Happy Sugar Life is a very unique anime, I think. It has a pretty low rating on MAL, and I know I always say, like, oh, it's just MAL. I mean, these ratings are skewed extremely. It actually has under a 7. Oh, man. Okay, so if you see an anime under a 7 on MAL, a lot of people instantly assume that, okay, this is shit, because take the American grading system. Like, a 70 is a D, an 80 is a C, a 90 is a B, and then anything above that is, well, not anything above that, but roughly above that, excuse me, is an A minus, or whatever the fuck. So it's presumed that like a 60 is a failing record. And that's kind of ingrained in a lot of American minds. But in anything else, it's like, no, it's not. I mean, okay, on ML, for example, a 6 is considered to be like fine. I think that's a pretty good representation. And then 6 is good, 8 is very good, 9 is great, 10 is a masterpiece, and then you have like mediocre, bad, very bad, blah 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 blah. Okay, anyway, getting to actual discussion about Happy Sugar Life. I came across this on Reddit a while back, on anime that was underrated for its time because of a very great amount of anime that was considered to be, hype material, which, I feel bad for those who don't go into that category in a season that apparently had a large volume of that. So you had a Happy Sugar Life over here. It's like, okay, I mean, maybe it'll do great. It did okay. So Happy Sugar Life is like a psychological horror anime that I think was done very, very well. It's eerie, and the concepts behind it are just, depending on the kind of person you are, they're kind of chilling. Um, God. And I don't normally go into this kind of thing because I don't really watch horror anime ever, or psychological kind of things. I've watched Code Geass, which is obviously a very psychologically driven thing, but nothing that was just fucking creepy like this is. All right, so we have our main character Sato, and Sato works at this maid cafe thing, and eventually gets a second job at this regular restaurant where the whole anime starts. It's like, she's overworked. She's just abused by this fucking bitch of a boss, and eventually she gets fed up with it. And this scene is great. I think she just, with this incredibly deadpan voice and face, she's just like, "Oh, I know you've been doing some very, very illegal things, and I can take you down." And she's right, because this bitch of a boss that she's working for has been sexually abusing this guy, Tayo. It's just creepy because these things actually happen. That just is scary. So Tayo ends up getting like mentally scarred by this situation, and Sato just she goes and quits. Blah blah blah. So why is this relevant? Well, she needed money. That's why she was working two different jobs. Why? Because she is keeping captive this girl named Shio, who is like, I don't know, she's probably 8 or 9 fucking years old. And this is the first time she claims that, Shio claims she feels love, which is a huge red flag. This is like a sign of abuse, and that's a huge theme in the series, is that abuse can lead to more abuse, which can scar so many different people. And Sato is just a very interesting character in that regard, because it's just like, she's very sweet, like in her demeanor, but she is kind of dead inside because of her past. And to get to her past, she's basically, I'm not going to get too much into it because I don't want to spoil a whole lot more. Obviously there's spoilers in this, but she was sent to live with her aunt when her parents died. I can't exactly remember what the situation was, but yeah, she's sent to live with her aunt when she was a very young girl. And her aunt is like this completely fucked up sociopath who will do anything for money. Like, she's like a sadist, a masochist. Like, if some guy wants to have violent rape sex with her, like, okay, well, I don't care. That's fine. And here's where Sato just gets completely fucked. Her aunt tells her that, oh, that's what love is. That's what love is. So Sato thinks that love is just this completely fucked up concept and doesn't recognize any of it with any of the boys she gets along with. I say get along with, like she kind of just, accept any boy who came toward her. But she didn't feel anything. Why? Because, well, this is kind of a. I'm not going to get into this whole issue of abuse or anything, but from my perspective, when you're fucked up this much by your stupid aunt, I think this thing is kind of guaranteed to happen. And overall, it's a great thriller. There's a lot of really weird plot twists, and all the characters are very great. Which is rare for me, I think, in something like this, where I go into it thinking, okay, well, a lot of people think this isn't that great, but it actually is pretty great. Great plot twists. Seiyus do a fantastic job. And I believe this is the first anime the studio who produced this did, and it looks, oh my god, it looks great. And I really applaud them for, doing such a great job on something like this, Seriously, it looks fantastic. I mean, all the characters are very expressive, the colors are great. I believe I read the ending is actually an original one. I've never read the manga, because this is based off of manga slash light novel. Right now, but if you're into that kind of thing, like the psychological weirdness of anime, Happy Sugar Life might actually, fulfill your lust for something like this. Okay, and the last one is probably going to be extremely controversial. The end of Evangelion. I've watched Evangelion twice, and I was always confused at why the hell it was so popular. I mean, it's a solid anime. There's some great plot twists. The fights are really, really cool, and like the whole psychological aspect behind it and the religious themes, intrigue me. But I don't get why this was one of the most popular anime of all time. And again, this is just my opinion. And if you want to downvote me to hell, for the very few people who actually view these videos, I don't care. Whatever. So basically, Evangelion, you have Shinji, you have Asuka, and you have Rei. Those are basically the main people. Shinji is just this severely depressed kid who hates himself. He wants to die. He's stated that like, I don't know, 1,000 times in the anime. Asuka's a bitch. She's a bitch because she was fucked up as a kid, and Rei's just like barely human. That's all I'm gonna say about those three, because I honestly don't really like any of them. I don't like many characters in this series. So basically, I'm not going to talk about regular Evangelion. I'm just going to talk about like the last two episodes. If you've watched the last two episodes, they are extremely divisive because of their extremely abstract nature. It's very psychological. There's no character development. After you watch episode 24, it's just, yeah, we're just gonna do all this psychological shit where they just talk about themselves and the characters talk to the other ones. It's not even real. I think it's going on inside the characters' heads. So I think that's all I'm really going to say about that. So then they have the end of Evangelion, which is a full-length movie that, what I've gathered, is what's happening at the same time as what's happening in the last two episodes. This is like the real work part, and these two episodes are what are going on inside the minds of the characters during this part. That's a cool parallel. It really is. But the end of Evangelion is just. I'm very conflicted on my feelings toward it. It's great at one point, and then it just goes to just the same kind of realm of weirdness and psychological oddities that the last two episodes go to. You have us going and destroying these other Evangelions, or Avas, whatever the fuck you want to call them. And then she gets just destroyed. Again, I mentioned there's spoilers, so you can't call me out on this one. And then Shinji joins the battle, and then he sees all this horror and kind of goes insane. And then the group Sele comes in and they start this whole ritual like, okay, we're gonna cause the third impact. We're gonna start the human instrumentality project, blah blah blah. And then this is where it just gets like trippy. I mean, like LCD acid weed trippy. And some of it is pretty interesting. I mean, like the kind of the religious themes behind it are pretty cool. But and then it just gets to the point where it's like, I don't even know why I'm fucking watching this anymore. So basically this whole third impact human instrumentality project goes into effect. And it almost succeeds until Shinji actually has a moment where he's not this miserable piece of shit and says, I think life can be worth living and I want to try. And I thought that was a great piece of character development because up until now, Shinji has had barely any. Every time you think Shinji has some kind of character development, he just ends up going back to, oh, I don't want to pilot the Avas. And that always just pissed me off. I mean, look, Shinji, I get you've been through some shit, but like, make up your mind. At one point you want to do this, at one point you don't want to do this. Just choose one thing. I know that a lot of people in that kind of state of mind can't think like that, but in a show, it's just, I know you're trying to be realistic, but it's just obnoxious and boring. I mean, okay, Asuka's clearly fucked up, but she never goes on this path. I mean, she kind of decays at the end, but she's always like, I really want to keep doing this. And Ray's just, I'm not even going to try to explain Ray, so fuck that. So yeah, after all these acid trip scenes, we get to the end where Shinji rejects human instrumentality. He's left on this beach, and suddenly Asuka appears next to him, and she's like, I don't think I should even say it because I don't like to do spoiler shit, but that's kind of a spoiler. And then the rest is left up to your imagination. It's meant to be ambiguous. And it's just, oh my God. Like, I get why people think this is a fantastic alternative to what the original series meant to be. But it's just, I think it feels very pretentious and honestly kind of stupid at some points, Like, stupid is the wrong word, but I just can't question, but why? Why would you choose to end like this? I mean, I'm not asking you to end with this super wholesome, epic ending, but this one is just it's just kind of bland and lame, to be honest. I mean, you at one point you can see like Ray flash before Shinji's eyes, and eventually he just doesn't see her anymore. You see Asuka over here. I'm not a huge fan of these left to your imagination kind of scenarios, but that's kind of what the end of the end of Evangelion does. Evangelion. What the fuck you want to call it? But yeah, that was a more disappointing viewing that I've seen. I enjoyed the two that I just discussed far more. But this one was just, I went into it expecting a far more satisfying ending to a series that I've watched, but I got kind of a equally weird, trippy ending. And if you want to just, I know there's a lot of fans out there of the series that think that this is, beautiful because of its open endedness and thematic relevance, but if you want to believe that, that's fantastic. But I just cannot get behind that kind of thing. I think I'm going to leave it at that and probably going to end this video. So, again, as usual, thank you for watching. I don't know if I'll have anything else up in the next few days. Not that it matters, but yeah, I had fun ranting about this, even though it's not a Keelloo rants video, but yeah, I'm going to end it right here. So I'll see you in the next video. Thanks, guys, for listening. Bye-bye.